I'm Bart Basie, this is Cheese and Crackers, and today we're going to make sushi. Sushi is simple, easy, elegant, and affordable to make at home. All you really need is a good piece of fish. Here we've got about a pound of Lac du Art salmon from Scotland. This is a fantastic sushi grade fish, the highest possible quality. I love the way this particular fillet looks. This is ideal. So to turn this into sushi, we need a knife. You could go out and get yourself a fancy Japanese single-sided blade with a bamboo handle. You don't have to. You could also pick up a German steel chef's knife. Fantastic knife, but you don't need that either. All you really need is a sharp knife. Here I've got a thin fillet knife, but any sharp knife will do. So your fishmonger can help you select an ideal fillet. Here Jada from Cheese and Crackers has selected this one for us, and I love this. Again, it's a piece of Scottish salmon. There's a lot of good salmon out there. This particular fillet is ideal for what we're doing. We need to remove the skin. As I just mentioned, we're going to work our knife just under the edge, and for that I'm going to have my hand flat on top of the fillet. I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to cut slightly in under the edge, and then as I do that, I'm going to move my fillet to the end of the cutting board so I can get a finger onto the skin where I'm cutting it. Need a little bigger cut there. Work it in like that. Now, what I'm not trying to do here is, I'm not trying to separate every scrap of fish from my fillet. There's a reason for that. This is going to become apparent in a second. But I'm just making a simple cut all the way down. In this case, I got to turn the fillet slightly. So as I turn it, we come through and we've separated our fillet out. Now I have skin and a fillet. There's a couple of things here. I've got a lot of good fish here. What I did not do intentionally, I did not go all the way down to the bottom of the skin. There's a reason for that. My problem is this bloodline here and the tendons over here on the sides. I don't want those on my fillet, but that does leave us with a beautiful section here of fantastic sushi grade fish. We've got a plan for those. This is how they do it in most of the sushi restaurants. We'll come back to our skin later. We're going to set that aside. Now we're going to take our fillet. We've got a small tendon that runs down the center. When you cook the fillet, that tendon renders out and it's gone. We're not cooking it. This is sushi, so we need to remove that. We also want to clean up our edges. And along our edges, in addition to some gorgeous fat lines with those beautiful omega-3 fatty acids, we've also got some small tendons on both of the edges of our fillet. So, in order to remove this, I'm going to make two cuts down the middle. There's my first one. Now I'm going to come through and make my second cut. And now I've got this centerpiece which has a small tendon. Again, great piece of sushi right here. Just got to keep that tendon out of things. So I'm going to set that aside. We'll come back to that in a minute. Now I've got my two pieces, my two fillet pieces that are almost completely ready to go. If this were a sushi restaurant, we're going to display these in a case. We do a little more trimming, and in this case I do want to get rid of just this edge here. So again, I'm going to run my knife straight down the side. Now I've got a beautiful sushi block. On this piece, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take just the edge off here, and again, this is all wonderful, good, edible fish. We're going to use every scrap of this, folks. On the end, got kind of an awkward shaped piece. The sushi guys always square up their fish so they can cut it fast and quick in the restaurants when they're serving customers. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to trim this off right here, and now I've got a beautiful rectangle to cut off. Got a really nice piece here. This is really tasty. We'll cut that in a second. I'm going to take and square this piece off as well. I'm going to take off just this end here. Trim that up a little bit more. There we go. And again, a lot of good fish here, and I have got a couple of gorgeous sushi blocks ready to go. So now we're going to cut our fish. You want to watch the grain on your fish, and you're looking for that beautiful coloration like that, the segmentation on the fish. The one mistake beginners make all the time on this is they cut their slices too thin. You want to bite into this and you want it tasty. A really thin slice isn't going to work as well. So on this one, we're going to start off here on the center. And again, I'm just going to slowly work my knife straight down. I'm going for a nice even slice, keeping my fingers away from the blade, holding that cleanly. And now I've got one. Get a few more out of this. 2. 3. Didn't quite get her. There we go. Now I've got those. Now these are long. We're not going to serve them this long. So in this case, I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to split those pieces. Now I've got 6 really elegant portions of my salmon ready to go. Now, these 2 blocks that are left here, I could keep cutting and I could get 4 more out of here. I could get probably 5 or maybe 6 more out of this block in terms of portions. This is great fish, cuts up perfectly. It's my sushi block, does great. Now, we're going to set that aside. We don't need to cut everything down here to show you. Now I've got some odd bits. You got a couple of choices. This, no tendons, no gray. No gray fish, no tendons, so I can put this on rice and just have sushi. In this case, in my house, I do that with it, and I would have a couple of oddly shaped sushi pieces. In a restaurant, this is going to get chopped up, and it's going to get chopped up with all this other stuff. So now I've got all the little scrap here, and again, this is good edible fish. This is great tasting. The only catch is I've got some small tendons in it. This is where my chef's knife comes in handy. And I am going to switch here. You can do this with your fillet knife. In this case, a little easier with a chef's knife. So we're going to turn that into a roll. We've also got our fish skin. And I'll show you the roll in a minute. Now for our fish skin, what we wanted to avoid was just this gray in the middle here. This gray down the middle is the bloodline on the fish. If you cook it, perfectly edible. If you don't cook it, it's a little on the metallic side. It's not a great mouthfeel, it's a little soft. So now what we're going to do is, we're going to get the good fish off here, and we're going to leave that gray alone. The way we do that is use a teaspoon. And you can take your teaspoon and get it down and just scrape up all the good stuff that you've left on the skin. And again, I'm not going all the way to the edge because what I've got right at the edge is, again, more tendon. So I'm going to come back here, get my spoon under there, and just scrape off everything. I've left all the gray on the fish. Teaspoon lets me do that. And if you're wondering how the pros do it, they use a teaspoon. This is how everybody does it. So now I'm going to come over here to this side, going to give myself a little line to start working on, and just gently pull away my fish, give myself another line on the other side. I want to stay away from the little tendony bits there, the heavier fat bits. I'm going to pull this all up and off my skin. You know, in any business, any restaurant, any sushi place you've ever been to, the whole goal is to turn a profit. And to do that, you can't waste anything. So you're paying a lot of money for high-grade sushi fish. If I had used my knife to get down to the skin as best I could, I would have picked up all the gray here, all the small tendons here. So that's why we do that. What's our waste? I'm guessing that our edible protein here is under an ounce. Now I'll tell you this, if you were to toss this in a frying pan, you'd have some crispy salmon skin, you'd have some tasty salmon, and literally just that right there, touch of sesame oil in a frying pan, throw this whole piece in it, and you have got a tasty little crispy appetizer. I love it. I don't throw anything away if it's good. So again, good fish here. something good we can do with it. But I do have all this scrap. So what do I do with this scrap? Well, these pieces are just too big to deal with. So I'm going to give this a very rough chop. And you may say to yourself, hey, wait a minute. I've been to some sushi places. I've never had chopped up raw fish. Yeah, you have. When you've gotten a roll, this is what goes inside your roll. When you get sushi or sashimi, the sushi and sashimi, they use the beautiful slices. But in the roll, they use this. It's good, tastes the same as this. Now that I've put a few cuts in it, you'll never notice the tendon in there. It is ideal. So how do I turn this into sushi? Simple. I take my piece of salmon, I take my rice, I lay it on top of my rice. There's my first cut, there's my last cut, and now I have got two gorgeous pieces of sushi. If I were to cut this whole thing up, I've got enough here to do, 3 good sized salmon rolls. I could do 4 small rolls. So 3 to 4 rolls came out of my pound, along with, well, we've got 6, probably 18 pieces of sushi by the time I cut the rest of this. So I just turned 1 pound of sushi into 18 individual pieces of sushi or sashimi and 4 salmon rolls. Now, the only thing we've got left then is to put it all together. So when we want to put it all together, the first thing we need is rice. What you're really looking for is a short grain, starchy rice. So a lot of the Spanish rices and Italian rices, they work great. What you want to stay away from are any of the medium or long grain rices. Those aren't going to work at all for you. It's going to be a mess. Along with that, when you're done cooking, you're going to fold in a teaspoon of vinegar and a teaspoon of sugar. That teaspoon of sugar and vinegar are going to give it balance, but we don't want them to be noticeable on the tongue. When you take a bite of the rice, you shouldn't taste it. At that point, our rice is done. We simply form, don't have enough rice there, we simply form our sushi piece. What we don't want to do is squeeze hard. We do not want to crush the rice. The idea here is just have a nice light bite. So now I've got my rice done. Once my rice is done, I take a bit of my wasabi. I spread that on a bit of fish, just a little. And there we go. I got another piece of sushi made. So now my sushi is ready to go. All done. To make the wasabi, here is a real good restaurant trick. Don't buy that pre-mixed stuff. Once you open the tube, the flavor dwindles fast, and the flavor right out of the tube isn't all that hot anyway. What you want to do is buy the powder. This stuff is ridiculously inexpensive, and it's easy to work with. It also lasts forever. I used on this tiny bag, well, probably a fifth or a sixth of what's in the bag. And with that amount, I've got enough for a pound, but very inexpensive. The flavor's great when you mix it yourself. How do you mix it? A couple drops of water. That's it. You need a little thinner, another drop of water. You don't have to add it all at once, drop by drop. Take you 10 seconds to have your wasabi mixed up. It's fresh, fragrant, and beautiful. We stir it up with a spoon, and that's it. Then we've got our little balls of wasabi. Works perfectly. Guys like me, I love a little extra wasabi on my fish. So we've made our rice, we've made our wasabi, we have assembled our sushi, but now we come to the very best part of it. Got a little soy sauce. Got a piece of sushi. So now, time to eat.